Good evening, everyone. While we wait for Representative Pearson to join us, I'm Daphne Thomas. I'm the Communications Director for Representative's campaign for Congress, and he has joined us. So
Hey there.
just some housekeeping. We will have question and answers after our campaign manager, Ms. Felicia Boyd, introduces Representative Pearson. Representative Pearson will then make a presentation about the affordability crisis, and then we will take questions and answers. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat, and I will ask your questions for you from that chat. We will begin with those who emailed in their questions earlier today. Okay, Ms. Felicia Boyd, our campaign manager.
Greetings and welcome to each of you for attending the virtual town hall on affordability by State Representative Justin J. Pearson. I am Felicia Boyd, Campaign and District Director for Tennessee House District 86. We are exceptionally grateful that you have chosen to spend a few minutes of your evening with Representative Pearson to hear his views on the rising cost of rent, the increasing cost of health care, and the continuous exorbitant cost of groceries. All households are feeling the pinch of the affordability crisis. We are spending more of our income on essentials. What are the solutions? It will require policy reform and guess what? Community engagement, which is the first approach for your which is the first approach of which you are now engaged. Thank you for your attendance, and let us now welcome State Representative Justin J. Pearson to further engage you on the affordability crisis that is impacting Memphis and Shelby County. Welcome, State Representative Justin J. Pearson.
Great job, Bunty. Hey, everybody. I'm Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson, and I am your candidate for U.S. Congress for District 9 here in Tennessee. I am so grateful to everyone who has made the time to be here. I know there are so many other things that you could be doing, and you thought it not robbery to spend a few minutes with us on this Monday evening to discuss affordability, the plans that I am proposing, and the work that we have yet to do in order to address what is an acute crisis now, but what each and every one of us have recognized has been chronic. We didn't just wake up here. Over the past several decades, there have been decisions being made by people in power that have disempowered and that have hurt and harmed our communities overwhelmingly. And when I look at many of your names and faces and the relationships that we have going back, look, we all know that everything is costing too much. We were just looking at whether it's the cost of a lemon almost being $1, or it has to do with groceries or egg prices being nearly $12. We have a real problem. But it's very important for us to realize the facts, the statistics, because that's what helps to drive decision making that I think is going to be important for us to propose when we are in Congress. And I can talk a little bit about legislation that I proposed here at the state level as well. But I think most importantly is to realize this is a decades-long problem, and it requires a level of intensity, a level of integrity, a level of commitment over the years to truly address. And so we didn't just wake up here. And when we think about people who are arguing with us that we should keep going with the status quo, and now's not the time for change, things need to stay the same. That is not our story. We do not want this status quo to remain the same because it is crippling and it is crushing to the people in District 9. And the only way that we get out of this is if we collectively work together, build power, and address the root causes of the problem. I'm going to take a look at the time here, 7:34. I'm not going to speak for more than 10 minutes about the affordability crisis and how we're seeing that show up, particularly in District 9. And then, as Daphne said, we'll go to Q&A for people who submitted questions ahead of time, and then we'll open the floor for you to be able to ask your questions right here, right now, about the affordability crisis, about our campaign for U.S. Congress, and anything else that you would like. We appreciate everybody remaining respectful, remaining kind during this moment in time. And if you would, just so that we can center ourselves, if you would just pray with me briefly. God, thank you for the opportunity to gather even virtually, to have such an important conversation that we know is impacting the lives of our neighbors, our family, those whom we love. We ask that you might enrich this conversation, that we might learn something, that we might grow together, that we might be better stewards of this place that we call home. This we pray in the Christian faith in Jesus' name and any faith that anyone here has. And together we say, Amen. So let's begin. Let me start off with talking through how this affordability crisis is showing up with our utilities, because that's one of the ways that I think we experience it a lot here in Memphis and Shelby County. Here are some facts. In January 2025, electricity rates in Memphis increased 4% as a part of the 12% rate hike that was approved a couple of years ago in 2023. Even during that time, I was opposed to it because we face such a high energy burden. More than 48% of Memphians face what's called a high energy burden, which means they spend more than 6% of their paycheck on utility bills. A study found this in 2024. And what that ultimately means is that people who already are being squeezed by other prices are giving more of their income to MLG&W and paying for utilities than what you expect the average to be across the country. And so what's the average across the country? Below 4%. But in Memphis, the median energy burden is 5.6%. And in many areas, including predominantly black communities, the energy burden can be even higher. In South Memphis, where I live, and I know some of you live, I live in Southwest Memphis in particularly, there's a median energy burden of 7%. And so this report showed that over 30,000 Shelby County families are experiencing staggering and severe energy burdens of more than 20%. So let's just think about that. One out of $5 that's coming to some folks' homes is going to just pay for their utilities. This is unconscionable for many of us to think about, but this is the real and lived experiences of a lot of people who are our neighbors, who we go to church with, who are in our sororities, who are picking up and dropping off their kids. That 20% of their income is just going to keep the lights on. That's not rent. That's not any medical bills. That's not any of those things. And when you compound that, and the word I think I want to use here is intersectional, when you compound this high energy burden that we experience in Memphis and Shelby County and District 9 with the problem with housing, you start to see how we are in the situation where we are. So in May 2025, rents in District 9 in Memphis hit a record high, with rent being $1,274 on average, which is up nearly 2% from a year ago, which is more than other major U.S. cities. And so while other U.S. cities actually in many major metropolitan areas, there was a little bit of a decrease in the last year, we actually saw a spike of 2% in rent cost. As of today, and I've met with some amazing leaders because that's part of the job. I think you have to organize and meet with leaders across the community who's doing this work. But I met with some amazing leaders who run the hospitality hub, and they share with me as of this year, we need 55,000 units of affordable housing for individuals who qualify as extremely low income. And you can type in the chat, but I want you to guess, what does extremely low income mean? That's an income of $17,000 per year. So right now in Memphis, in District 9, we need 55,000 units for people who make $17,000 a year. That didn't just start 1 year ago or 2 years ago. This is 5, 10, 15, 20 years of a failure to address the affordable housing crisis and to adequately meet the needs of people in this constituency that have left us with a crisis situation. And then you do, and we talked about this off already a little bit, but the price of food. We're seeing the consumer price index for food in the Southeast region, which is our region, went up over the last year by 3.1%. So it's not your imagination or mine that when you spend $50 at the Kroger's, it doesn't seem to be going as far as it's supposed to. This is a consequence of the indexes for these foods going up. And four of the six major grocery store, this is the statistic, four of the six major grocery store food group indexes increased in August, including non-alcoholic beverages and beverage materials, meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. This is not a figmentation of our imagination. We're seeing a 3.1% increase all the way up to a 6.5% increase for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs. Food costs between Today, in 2025, in January of 2022, food costs are up 18.2%. That means if you had a $100 bill in 2018, in 2022, if you were going to buy that same thing that you spent $100 for, it would now be $118.16. Where's that 18.16 cent coming from? You think about that with food, you think about that with healthcare, you think about that with housing, and that number grows. And yet, the wages and the income that we need in order to be able to survive and to make living affordable has not met up. So these are the consequences of inaction. These are the consequences of poor policy and poor decision makings, where corporations, in essence, are owning our politicians. Instead of our elected leaders and our politicians working for the people, they're getting millions and millions of dollars from corporate PACs and listening to corporations about how they can make more profits off of the backs of people. And we know that there are a lot of consequences that have happened even during this administration, particularly of the Trump administration, that have gotten us to this point. But I'm an honest person, and I'm going to tell you the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. This didn't just start with Donald Trump becoming president of the United States. We've seen corporations buying up neighborhoods, and I think it's nearly 11% of the housing stock in Memphis and in District 9 is actually owned by private equity firms. And so they're buying up neighborhoods, which is allowing them the opportunity to be able to increase the rates and hike the rent for individuals, which is contributing to our housing crisis. And one of the very significant issues that you all know I have worked on in the State House and fought for legislation about is increasing the minimum wage. It's completely unfair and unjust that the minimum wage is $7.25. Regardless of if you know people who are making that amount or not, and there are people who are, and there's some people, particularly servers, who are making even less. The problem is this: if our signal to the economy is that you can pay people low wages, that isn't a good signal. We want people to be able to have thriving wages so that they can participate in the economy in a way that we know they need to if they're going to be able to survive. And so that's why I have legislation now at the Tennessee General Assembly to make the minimum wage at least $20 an hour, which would be $40,000 a year, and to use the MIT Living Wage Calculator to help make that proportional to the place where you live. So there's cost of living adjustments, because some places you might need more than that. Some places you might need $19. And so we want to be intelligent in how we're coming about that. But we have to increase the federal minimum wage. And we can't just see letters and introduction of legislation. You all know me. We have to organize people. Just like we had a fight for 15, we have to have a fight for 20. And we know the benefits to the businesses, the benefits to the communities are significant. There's research out of University of Virginia that says that supports the idea that increasing the minimum wage has positive effects beyond direct employment. There's an increase in happiness, an increase in productivity, reductions in crime, and reductions in community displacement. And a 2023 study from the Center on Wage and Employment Dynamics found that minimum wage increases pay in low wage industries, particularly so in small businesses, without any corresponding disemployment effects. And that's one of the things that people tell us. Well, if you increase the minimum wage, then people aren't going to have jobs anymore. And that just is not true. That statistic and that propaganda is only being used so that CEOs and corporations can continue to make hundreds of times more than their median employee. And we have to say, we need a new direction. We need a new vision. We have to fight for it. And when you look specifically at this district, and one of the reasons that I'm running for Congress here, our household income is lower than the national average. In the 9th Congressional District, our median household income is $55,603, compared with $83,730 for the nation. And we have more families in District 9 living below the poverty level than the national average. The percentage of families in District 9 that are below whose income in the past 12 months is below the poverty level is 17.7%, compared to the nation, which is 11.1%. So our poverty level, 17.7. The national poverty level, 11.1%. And the percentage of families, and you think particularly of families of four, with children under the age of 18, whose income has been below the poverty level, is 28.5%. So over 1/4 of our families in this district are below the poverty level. And children, and you know we have about 100,000 kids who are in Memphis Shelby County schools in and of itself. Children under the age of 18, all across District 9, 37.3% of them are living underneath the poverty level. So we're saying 1 out of every 3 kids that you see walking around in our community are underneath the poverty level. This is the reality. And so when I'm out there and I'm talking to people and I'm hearing folks, y'all, we cannot afford to follow the status quo. The status quo is dangerous. The status quo is not beneficial. The status quo has hurt and harmed us. And the only way we get out of this is being intentional about supporting anti poverty programs, doing the necessary legwork to fight for $20, doing the work to make sure that we lower the medical debt for people in our communities, because we know Tennessee has the highest medical debt than any other state in the union. And what I need for you all to do as people who support this campaign, or even if you're just thinking about supporting this campaign, is hold true to the possibility that things can be different. It is going to take time. It is going to take effort, but we have to do something right now because this is a crisis. And it is feeling more acute now, but this has been chronic. This has been building up over a very long period of time. And we have not had the right leadership in place to help stem the tide, to help fight for and advocate for the transformational change that we know that we need. And that's what we need, and that's what we deserve in this moment. I'm going to stop there. And thank you for listening. And I'm going to pass it over to Daphne because I know many of you have sent in some amazing questions. And then we'll be able to open it up to this group here for more questions. Okay? Does that sound all right? Give me a thumbs up. Right.
Sounds
Very
great.
good.
That sounds great. I want to let everybody know the chat is open for you to submit your questions to Representative Pearson. We had a few people submit questions earlier today, so I'm going to ask Representative Pearson a few of those that will probably answer some of the questions that you may have. And thank everybody for being here. We've got about 23 folks in this
Wow.
meeting. That's great. Okay, regarding affordability, where do you feel the state budget is misaligned with the current affordability crisis? And what changes would you prioritize?
Yeah, that's a great question. The state budget is completely misaligned with the priorities of the people who live in Tennessee. Last year, there was an effort to give $2 billion in tax breaks to corporations. Over half of them didn't even have their headquarters in the state of Tennessee. I fought that along with some of my other colleagues, and they still passed that. So, budgets, I believe, are moral documents. They tell you about the principles, the values of the people who are helping to pass them. And what we're seeing right now is our morals do not align with supporting those who are in most need in our communities, which is why I have not voted for the budget a single time that I've been in the state house. And you can see it. Not to give you another example, you all know I do a number of meetings with veterans, and we try to do this about every month. We get with our veterans because hundreds of millions of dollars in benefits to veterans is missing in Shelby County, over $400 million. And again, that didn't just start yesterday. This is decades and decades of neglect of our veterans. But I looked at the budget, the governor's budget for this upcoming year, and because he's already submitted a draft, and there's zero increase for veteran affairs in the budget. So there's only 74 employees. There's not an increase at all for there to be more veteran services officers. And so you hear oftentimes Republicans talking about they care about veterans and all these things, but when push comes to shove, that's not where their money's going. Their money's going to more tax breaks. Their money's going to private school vouchers. It's not going to support the needs of the people in our communities. And so there's a huge misalignment. And you look at what's happening in Congress. I mean, it's almost $1 trillion going to private contractors and the military industrial congressional complex. Almost $1 trillion every single year, not going to soldiers, not going to troops, but going to people to be able to make billions of dollars off of creating bombs and weapons of war. And I know there's another person who's in this race who supports the sending of billions of dollars overseas. I can't do it because I don't think it's fair for us to send billions of dollars to places like Venezuela and things like that when people in our own district don't have housing. People in our own district don't have health care. People in our own district are struggling. And so that's one of the main things that is another distinction that we have. But we need the investment right here, right now, and we have to have voices that fight for that. And I saw somebody with their hand raised, and we'll put you in there, um, in the queue.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much. The next question is still focusing on the state of Tennessee and
Sure.
where the shortfalls are there. How can the state partner with local governments to increase affordable housing while
Mhm.
protecting current residents from displacement?
Mm. This is a real question because this is a very interesting question because one of the concerns is you start to build up neighborhoods and then it gets gentrified and then the taxes go up and then you can't afford the taxes and so then you get pushed out of a neighborhood where you've been born, where you're raised. I think one, at the local level, we should put a cap on taxes for people who are in those communities so that they don't suffer from displacement because that's a long history, has a long history in our communities that we need to address. But at the state level, I really do. Again, we need funding. And I'm one of the only legislators who's put requests in for billions, and I mean with a B, billions of dollars to come into our district because that's what we need. And the state budget is $60 billion. You telling me we can't get one of those billion for education, for housing, for healthcare? And so that's been one of the priorities. And again, this year, I'm going to bring that back up for transportation. We have to continue to advocate for it. But what you're also articulating and what you have to recognize is if we are not able to get those changes in the budget, do I, as a representative, say, there's nothing we can do. I just got to wait until Democrats get back in power, right? And then maybe there's a chance. That's not me. No. And so there's actually, and I'll loop you all into this, there's an opportunity potentially to have 50 units of housing bought for families in Shelby County. And there's a donor from outside of the state who is offering $2 million for a match of $2 million. And I learned about this again from some people who are doing some amazing work on affordable housing. And so I'm starting to call some of donors and supporters that I have known over the years and say, hey, there's a great opportunity here for us to address workforce development, for us to address housing insecurity. You have to do what you can where you can and never quit advocating, never quit demanding more. And yeah, do I think governability is going to accept my billions of dollars of investment for Shelby County? Maybe not. But what I do know is if we never ask for it, they'll be able to say you never wanted it. And that's what we have to do. We have to change and control our narrative about what it is we need, what it is we want, and what it is we deserve. And that's one of the things I'm doing at the state level, and that's what I have to bring to Congress.
Okay, you mentioned about outside support. This question kind of dovetails into that. How can Tennessee ensure that affordability initiatives genuinely support low and moderate income residents rather than primarily benefiting developers or corporations?
Yeah, it comes with the level of intention in legislation and following the dollars all the way through. We have to make sure that the money that is going into communities for affordable housing, for development, goes to the right people. And then when those projects get developed, that it's equitably distributed to people who need it. And so you'll see there was a big project that was announced here at the former Foot Homes, or used to be Foot Homes Project, and now it's a mixed use development. So some people who actually grew up in the neighborhood can no longer live there. Right? And people were so proud. It's getting rebuilt, it's getting redeveloped. But then news stories come out that, well, some folks thought they would be able to return home, but there's an income threshold for you to be able to live there. And so, yes, it was great that it got redone, but the same people who moved in or who used to live there for all their lives were not able to return. And so we have to make sure there's an equitability when we're having these good projects that are coming into our community. And that, in essence, is leadership that helps make that happen.
Okay, we're going to shift a little bit to economic opportunities and wages, like you discussed earlier. What is the economic plan for the Walker Homes Westwood area, in your
Yeah.
view?
That's a great question. I'm deeply invested. Y'all know I'm from Westwood. I live in the neighborhood, and so 5 minutes away from my mom in 38109. And so I'm deeply invested in what happens in our community. And one thing is, we need anchors. We need some anchor institutions. And I tell people about these corporations that come here. We don't want the hindquarters, right? We want the headquarters. We want to see real economic investment. We want real jobs to be headquartered in places where opportunity has been divested over the years. And that's in South Memphis, that's in North Memphis, in New Chicago, in Westwood, and in Walker Homes. And in a couple of weeks, I'm actually meeting with some business leaders to discuss how do we prioritize the places that haven't had the necessary investments over the years to get people to come into our communities. And maybe there are incentives for that. I hate pilot projects because people are just robbing our city blind, but there may be some way to incentivize more businesses to go into places that have not had the necessary investment. And I think that's a possibility because the thing is, when you have those companies, they'll hire people from the community. And having that as a marker of success, I think is also really important.
Okay, we're going to shift to healthcare.
Okay.
It says, what steps is the legislature taking to expand access to affordable health care, particularly given Tennessee's decision not to expand Medicare?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I think we have to do when I get to Congress. Some states have refused to expand Medicaid. We should not have made it optional. We needed to have and should have had from day one a Medicare for all, a health care for all plan. It doesn't make any sense that you can get sick, you can go to the hospital and end up with a bill that's $100,000. That's just not fair because ultimately what we're then telling people is uh, we're ultimately deciding who deserves to live and who deserves to die based on their income. And that's asinine in our society, in the richest country in the world. We should expect that if you need to go to the hospital, you will be taken care of. We should expect that if you develop some form of cancer or some illness, that you will be able to get treatment without ever having to worry about whether or not you're going to live your kids in debt. So I tell this story, but one of my interns is Jermaine. He's a brilliant young man. And I asked Jermaine, why do you want to get in politics? What interests you about this thing? And he says his grandmother. And I was like, okay, tell me about your grandmama because for those of you who don't know, my grandmama's my grandmama Pearson, my grandmama Gwen, the true matriarchs who helped build me and my family into who we are. And he told me a story that she had gotten an illness, and his mom was paying for the medicine. And ultimately, his grandmother told her to stop. She said, I don't want you all to have debt after I'm gone. And a few days after she stopped taking her medicine, she actually tragically passed away. But in this country, why is that okay? In this country, that again creates billions of dollars for private industry to bomb people, why are people deciding that they would rather die than have their family carrying the burden of debt? That isn't the country that we deserve to live in. And I believe that we deserve to live in a country where you can go to the doctor, you can be seen, and you can walk out without worry about a medical bill because that's the type of America I want to live in. That's the type of America I want my future children to live in. That's the type of America I believe we deserve. And I know there's some legislation being pushed for in Congress for Medicare for all. But again, it's not enough to just sign your name saying I am a co-sponsor or I support something. We have to expect more from our leaders to advocate, to fight, to stand up to the corporations, to stand up to the healthcare industry and say access to healthcare is a human right.
Thank you so much, Representative Pearson. I'm going to go to the chat now. We have some fantastic questions here with the
Okay.
time we have left. It says, the first one says from Erica Cleaves, I live in the Walker Homes area, District 86. I would like to know with companies like XAI and other data center expansions increasing energy demand across the country, what safeguards is Tennessee considering to um, present to, I
Oh,
guess, control residential utility bills from rising as a result?
mm-hmm.
Prevent.
Yep, that's a great question, Eric, and I see you here if you want to add any other color to that. But I'm putting up some legislation related to AI and data centers this upcoming legislative session for that very reason. A lot of places, we're seeing a small increase in our utility bills, but a lot of places are seeing extraordinarily drastic, 100, 200% increases in the utility costs from the use of water, the instability to the electric grid, and there are no protections right now for customers. And so corporations need to pay a higher rate than they currently pay. And we also need to make sure that anytime there is a need for electricity, corporations lose electricity first rather than individuals. But our system is skewed toward corporations, y'all. Sarah Houston from Protect Our Aquifer was educating us this past weekend. I was doing an event with Memphis Artists for Change and to Tamika Greer. And she educated us that if you or I use, 100 gallons of water, it costs roughly like 32 cents a gallon. But if a corporation uses 100 gallons of water, guess how much they're charged? 17 cents. Half. The more water corporations use, the less it costs. And the more water we use, the more it costs. So there needs to be an inversion in the way that we're thinking about how we pay for things. And again, it cannot be skewed towards corporations being beneficiaries off of public utilities. And so I'm still watching, Erica, what the consequences XAI might have to our utility grid. And also, I'm just extraordinarily cognizant of the pollution and the air pollution problem. And some people, they just complain about stuff. But the reality is, true leadership is you got to do something about it. And so I chair Memphis Community Against Pollution, and we're investing $250,000 into the studying of air quality in South Memphis because this is a real problem. We have an F in air quality according to the American Lung Association in Shelby County as well as in DeSoto County where Colossus 2 is. And we have to prioritize our health and our well-being, and we have to put people first. And so December 15th, next Monday, early in the morning at 9:30 at the University of Memphis Center, there's going to be a hearing on XAI's air pollution, and would welcome everyone to attend that, and we'll be sure to circle that around too.
Okay,
Here, does
great.
someone want to come off mute? Or Amber, you want to come off mute? Read your question.
Let me find her. Let's see.
Good evening. I was trying to come off mute and go back to my question here. So of course, Representative Pearson, my background is workforce development. So my question is, how should District 9 align a workforce development strategy with the cost of living framework to ensure economic growth translates into real affordability for residents?
I mean, I would just hire you, and Uh, look, I think you're spot on. One of the challenges with workforce development in our community is our wages are stagnant. And so you can stay in a job for 20 years and be making very little more money than you did the first day. So when it comes to the Chamber of Commerce and leaders like that, they have to be intentional about having real wage growth and real opportunities for economic mobility for the people who are hired in the corporations in our community. Our greatest single asset in this district are the amazing people who make it up, but they have to be treated that way. We have to invest in them that way. And right now, those investments aren't significant enough. And too many people from 16 years old to 66 are making $10 and $11 an hour. A lady who's working at Dollar General is making $10 an hour. $10 an hour, y'all, translates to $20,000 a year. So you have to work, and that's for 40 hours. So you have to work another job, hopefully making that same amount just to get to 40,000. So that's 80 hours of work a week. And so people aren't able to spend as much time with their kids. They aren't able to do tutoring. They aren't able to go and do other things that we want for them to do because our economic system is strangulating in such a real way. But I believe we can and we should, to your point, Ms. Covington, make sure that we tie our workforce development and the types of jobs that we're training people for to a trajectory of wage increases. And when I think about AI, when I think about automation, when I think about robotics, this is one of the things that's concerning to me. If we take away jobs in warehouses, okay, and we have tens of thousands of people in my district here who rely on those jobs. If we take away those jobs with automation, with artificial intelligence, with robotics, what then do we have without a universal basic income? What then do we have to deal with? And how are we creating a safety net today for that future problem? Well, that's an excellent, and I did workforce development as well, serving as a special assistant to the CEO at Year Up, and we were getting folks jobs 18 to 29 in corporate America. And I was fortunate to be on the team that helped over 50,000 young people get jobs that folks in their family had never had before. But our main goal, whenever we had placed someone in a company, was this job can turn into a career. And we need people to be career oriented, and we need people to have other, we need people to be career oriented, and we need to make sure we have pathways that aren't just 4-year degrees, right? We need more welders, we need more people in HVAC, we need more entrepreneurs. But thank you so much for that question.
Hey,
I,
Nicole, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
No.
Warren.
Hi, how are y'all? I'm Nicole Warren. Hi, Representative Pearson. Nice to see you. I was listening as you were doing a bit of the intro, and I'm curious because I think, like, as you're running in a national election, I'm curious about the ways that you're seeing yourself differentiate from what you were naming as the status quo. And I think that there's been a push nationally, and we saw it in New York around like differences within the Democratic Party, because I think everyone can agree, at least if you're sitting in this room, that on a lot of basic issues. And I'm curious about like what's differentiating you, particularly as it relates to affordability and like the way you described as the Democratic status quo.
Yeah, I'll say two things. One, its priorities determine who the person is. And my priority has been since my first day in elected office. One of the first pieces of legislation that I was bringing forward was related to a minimum wage and creating more opportunity for people economically. Because I know that if you do not have money, life is very hard. Life is very challenging. I grew up financially poor, but spiritually rich. But I can tell you, it's good to be spiritually rich, but it is better for kids to have food, to have shelter, to have health care, to have glasses, to have contacts, to have orthodontia. It's better for us to have the supports necessary for people to become who we know that they can become. And right now, that's not true. And so when you look at the status quo, and I say this because it's really important, the status quo didn't just start this way. People have had 10, 20, 30, 40 years to do things differently. But I really, Nicole, and I don't mean this to be naive, but looking at our campaign, when we really launched our campaign for Congress, you start to peel the onion and you see that there are some Democrats who are, their entire campaigns are funded by corporate PACs. And then you go look at some Republicans and their entire campaigns are funded by corporate PACs. So, of course, they aren't listening to the people, right? It's the same. Things aren't changing because people are beholden to these corporate interests and not to the people. And they get up there and they're in DC and they swear, only things that matter is what's happening in Washington, DC. And they forget about us and they forget about what we're experiencing and what our communities are going through. And you wake up and you say, nearly 38% of our kids are in poverty. We need 55,000 units of housing. After some people have been in office for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and here we are today. This is the result of decades of people being in office, but they may have went in well intentioned, but at some point or another, they got in there, they got in that system, and the system corrupted what may have started out as something really good and really holy and really noble. Because now they get the money from the corporations, they don't feel beholden to the people, and they just allow things to keep going. And they wave up their hands. They say, that's not my problem. And in this day, in this age, we need more than the bare minimum. And Democrats have to do a better job of standing up, speaking up, organizing, mobilizing, and fighting back. I was very disappointed after this shutdown because what are we going to do? Right? I got a message from one of our own constituents. This couple, they're going from $600 to nearly $2,400 in healthcare premiums. Representative, how are we going to make up the money? They didn't get more money. Social Security isn't increasing, right? And yet we're telling people you just need to figure it out. Now, for people who are extremely wealthy, they don't care. And half the people in Congress are multimillionaires trading stocks while being in Congress. And so they're not proximate to the pain of the people. So that's how I'm separating myself from some of the folks who are currently elected. I'm much more proximate. I'm much more connected to what our community is experiencing than, some of these multimillionaires who are not as invested in our day-to-day lives. And I want to see more people have access to opportunities that I've been blessed and fortunate with. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not a person who could say, I'm not going to accept a check from my job working with Bold or from my Tennessee General Assembly. I can't. If I didn't get a check from the Tennessee General Assembly or my job, I would not be able to pay the mortgage. Period. like this is me, right? Like this is us. And that's why our campaign slogan, it's about us, because it's us. Who are suffering, it's us who are dealing with these consequences, and it's us who have to fight to change them. I hope that answers your question, Nicole. Thank you.
Okay, we have enough time for just a couple of questions, Representative.
Let's
This
do it. I'll speed up my answers too.
I'm going to unmute Julius and Angel Holly.
Okay.
Julius and Angel, are you there?
So I'll come off mute.
Okay.
Oh, there
Well,
we
this
go.
is their question.
There, go ahead, Julius. Oh, we see you. We just can't hear you, Julius. That's all right. Daphne's going to try and read your question here. I'm sorry about that, but you
No.
look good.
Okay, it
Go
says
ahead.
when it comes to XAI getting power from MLGW and they committed to paying a large sum of money to the city, do you think our utilities will become stable and not increase much after this 12% that we are paying now?
Question. That's a good question. So two things. One, um, XAI is paying their taxes, right? And their taxes is roughly $26 million for this past year. I think 14 million goes to the city. The rest goes to the county. One of my problems, Julius, and you can look this up in the Daily Memphian article from this past April, is they were supposed to pay nearly 3 times as much as that. So they were really supposed to pay almost $120 million in taxes, but they somehow finagled it to where they could pay on $2 billion worth of their property instead of $12 billion. Okay. And so, yes, it's good to get some more tax revenue, but we really should have gotten a lot more. They just came in really as a company. They came in the wrong way, really from the beginning. I do think we did not see a proposal for a wage increase from MLG&W this time. What XAI is paying for are substation development. So they needed 2 more substations to give them access to 150 megawatts of power. So they worked with MLGW to build those substations. But MLGW said they're maxed out. MLGW cannot give them more power. They have no more power to give them. And so XAI is using in its plant in South Haven gas turbines to try and meet this need that they have, trying to be quote unquote off the grid. But we know the consequences of that being air pollution. So they're paying for the substations. That's true. They are paying some tax money. That's also true. But MLG&W typically has asked for rate increases even after we've given them sort of like the last 12%. What I'm saying is when they ask for another rate increase, it needs to be an equitable rate increase where corporations pay their fair share and individuals and residents do not have to see an increase at all. And if that were done, I think it'd be to the tune of many millions of dollars would be being paid by the corporations that would cover the cost of the loss of our rates staying the same.
Okay,
And
Felicia.
because we have energy burden, that's important. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Uh,
Felicia.
Felicia Matthews shared this. In addition to the cost regarding XAI, I read a national report that states there has already been an increase in asthma rates near XAI. I'm glad to hear that this is being addressed locally. Question from Elbert Hubbard of the Tri-State Defender. Memphis also has problems with contractor scams affecting the elder Black community. What is your take if you were looking for a contractor that can fix and finish the work with quality? What
Mhm.
safeguards and legislation would you suggest or fight for in this situation?
Yeah, that's a great point. And so let me just hit those real quick. Felicia Matthews, thank you for your comment. And I would say it's being addressed locally, but it's being addressed through a nonprofit. Right? We're putting more money than the city government, more money than the county government, more money than the health department. The entities that are actually supposed to be protecting our health and our well-being are failing to do so. And so a small nonprofit out of Memphis is seeking to meet that need. And truthfully, I'm blessed and honored and grateful that we're in a position to do so. But this should have been being done way before now. Yes, we applaud Memphis Community Against Pollution, and simultaneously, we have to hold our elected leaders accountable from Congress to the state house to the local level, responsible for why has this been allowed to get this bad. with 18 toxic release inventory facilities, an F in air quality, a cancer risk that's 4.1 times the national average. Things are not okay. We have more kids who go to the emergency room in Shelby County and from Shelby County than any other county in the state of Tennessee. Not okay. And too many leaders are just saying it's going to be somebody else's problem. That's not the type of leader I am. That's not the type of person I am. And our organization is fortunate to sort of step into that role. But that's one of the things that we need to see at the congressional level, all the way through the rest of government. And to your point, Mr. Hubbard, and thank you for that question, we have to make sure that there are standards for people to be contractors. There need to be standards for people to be able to serve in our communities where they're fixing the roof, they're doing HVAC and all these other things. And in essence, you need your card. You know, my wife, she's in law school, she has to pass the bar, right? In order to become a lawyer, we need to make sure we have rigorous standards before people are coming into folks' home, taking their money, and then there's no new money coming, right? And so that's one thing, to have standards, and then we need to have protections that if somebody does get scammed, we can have a pot of resources available for them to recoup some of their losses.
Okay, Representative Pearson, this is our final question, and after you answer that, if you have any other things you would like to add, you can do so then, and then we'll close out. This
Okay.
last question is from Ms. Eve Slaughter. She
Okay.
says, many large corporations in our urban centers benefit from city services, infrastructure, and a skilled workforce, but through mechanisms like pilots, payment in lieu of taxes, tax abatements, or aggressive appeals, they pay little to no property tax. This shifts the tax burden to homeowners and small businesses and starves our schools, parks, and public services of funding. What specific policies will you champion at the federal level to address this imbalance and ensure large corporations pay their fair share to support the communities in which they operate?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. Pilots are one of the things that gives me a significant consternation about our beloved and beautiful city. In one hand, people say XAI came here and we didn't give them any tax breaks. We didn't give them anything. We didn't give them any pilots. And so you all should be proud. And then you have a company like Fred's, at the old Fred's, where another data center is coming and they're asking for $31 million in pilot taxes. And then we're being told, well, you have to have pilots in order to bring companies. So it's just like, which is it? Right? I believe our city is strong enough, beautiful enough, more powerful enough that we don't need to be giving out as many pilots as we've been given out for companies to want to come here. We have good people, we have great location, we have great opportunities, and we are a city that is growing and that is developing. Yep, just like every other place, we got struggles and we have challenges and we have problems. But those challenges, as you mentioned, Eve, are being exacerbated by the lack of investment of taxes from the companies that are already here. You have some companies that have been in our city for 20, 30 years. They're not going anywhere, that are still getting millions and millions and millions of dollars of payments in lieu of taxes. If you believe in Memphis, you have to invest in Memphis. We, as taxpayers, we never get the option to do something like payments in lieu of taxes if we start a nonprofit, if we serve in public office, if we mentor, right? And so companies have to invest in the places that they care about, or we are not going to see the progress that we need. Even actually, I think our city has given more pilots than every other city or town in the state of Tennessee combined. I'm almost certain that's true. So if all these other places, Nashville and Knoxville and Chattanooga, aren't needing as many pilots to attract business, why are we? There's a point where we're not just attracting business, we're attracting exploitation. And we have to believe that we are a great place to be. We have to believe that this is an amazing place to raise families. We have to believe that this is the place that you want to be in, and sell ourselves from a place of strength, not from a place of deficiency. Legislatively, at the federal level, they probably won't deal as much. We probably won't deal as much with pilots. For a while, I thought I was going to be on the DMC board and I was going to be an advocate against pilots being used. But one of the things that I can do is, using positional authority, is advocate against them. When this data center that's going into Old Fred's plant on December 17th, I think they're going before the Edge board, I'm going to be there saying we do not need to give them a pilot. And so sometimes it may not officially be within my role as a United States congressman, or even as a Tennessee General Assembly representative. I still show up and I still speak up because this is my home and I love this place. And I want to see those companies pay their taxes. I want to see them contribute to our education system, contribute to our schools, contribute to fixing the roads, helping us to be the city that we need to be. But we can't keep cutting our legs out from under us by taking away all of our possibility for tax revenue, or just saying we have to accept tax revenue from anybody because we're such a poor city. Like, we have to have a clear vision on that. And my vision is really clear. Memphis is a great place to be. If you want to be here, pay your taxes and help us to build into the place that we know we ought to be. And had we done that, I believe it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars at this point that would have received from companies, and that they very likely still would have come here because some of them need our aquifer water because of the food processing that they do. Many of them need our location because of just the artery that we are across the country. And so we have to sell ourselves in a more positive light and not continue to think of ourselves in a deficiency. I really appreciate that question. And then I'll wrap here because I want to be mindful of you all's time. But first and foremost, thank you so much to Daphne Thomas, my amazing communications director, for organizing and coordinating this virtual town hall, our first of many to come. Thank you so much to my campaign manager, Felicia Boyd, for making the time to be here and all the work that you're doing. To Lorette, to Eve, to Amber, to Mr. Siebert, to Lori, to Erica, Albert, Elizabeth, Julius, Christine, Cicely, Tanya, Eugene, Dr. Salisbury, my mom's good friend, Cliff Stockton, good to see you, Felicia Matthews, Jason Sharif, good to see you, Stanley and Daniel, and all. I know some had to hop off, Memphis Artists for Change, and others. I am grateful. I really do appreciate you taking the time. We will continue to hold these town halls because I want to be a proximate leader. I want to continue to show up for you and to show up with you, to share what I am learning about what is going on in Congressional District 9, so that when people tell you to keep going and things are going so great, you can have some facts and some figures to say things aren't really going so great. And we can be grateful for what has happened and what people have contributed in the past, while recognizing in this moment we need to move in a new direction. We need to move in a different direction, because I think for many of us who are on this call, we know things aren't going great for the most people, and for many of us even, and we know that things can be better. And so I pray that during this moment, this time, you learned something that was helpful and useful. And I pray that we will see you at our next virtual town hall. If you want to get engaged with our campaign, go to votejustinj.com. You can volunteer there. You can donate there. Continue to follow us on social media and stay tuned in and plugged into the work that we are doing as we continue to fight for a strong District 9, a strong Memphis, a strong community. And together we're going to be able to do it, because this entire campaign, all of this work, it is not about me. It is about us. And as long as we keep that as our guiding light, as our North Star, I know we're going to win an election, but also we're going to win a better future for ourselves and for our descendants. I thank you all so much, and I pray you have a blessed night tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Memphis, Tennessee, I love that shirt, Lori.
I love it.
Yes. Thank you all
Thank
so
y'all
much.
so
Bye-bye.
much. We'll be in touch. We have your contact info. We'll keep you in the loop, okay? Appreciate the fantastic questions as well. Good
Nighty night.
night and happy holidays if we don't see you before the holidays come up. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Lori.